Okay, so welcome along to our Croissants Coffee and Profit First call. So I'm here with some of our certified Profit First professionals and our Profit First guy, Jason. And also we've got Trudy and Kim in the room who are not Profit First professionals, but we welcome along. Croissants and Coffee, as you know, is for accountants and bookkeepers that run their own business. And we're looking to support them, give them some guidance on Profit First, and hopefully in the long run, they'll eventually join us at Profit First Professionals. That's the aim of the game. But at the moment, there's no pressure on that to happen immediately. But it's great to see people along that can find out more and learn more about Profit First from us. So the conversation today is going to be mainly me telling my story about the steps I took that moved me from compliance into advisory. The reason this is so important is because a lot of people talk about compliance to advisory. It's almost a buzzword for coaches to use. And actually, talking with Deb and talking with Jason, we've had these conversations, and there's not many people out there that have actually done this. And mainly the Profit First professionals are the people that have done this. They've actually taken their business from a compliance only practice and moved into the advisory space using Profit First as their main tool or one of their tools to help them build the confidence to become a trusted advisor to their clients, and then start to add the fees and command the fees that you would like to command. So I did this. I had a compliance only business, and I got to a stage after a number of years where I built the business up on referrals. Everybody that I was serving had an expectation on things being done quite quickly, because that's how I built the business up. And I was the focal point. So yeah, I had an accountant and a bookkeeper working with me for some of the time, but everything was still on my shoulders. I hadn't quite worked out how to be a business owner at this stage. I was an accountant running an accountancy firm, providing accountancy services. I wasn't a business owner. And I think it's important to distinguish between those facts. And I was working really long hours. I was falling out of love with the business, and I felt that the business wasn't serving me very well. I wasn't paying myself enough. I didn't feel rewarded for everything that I was doing. So, I would say at this point, I was probably approaching burnout. So I had about 250 clients. They were all compliance, and it was I used to set myself a target at the beginning of the week that by Friday we had to have this amount of work completed to make sure we brought the money in to the business, if that makes sense. So as you can imagine, at this point, I was invoicing once job was complete. So I didn't even have a recurring income at this stage. This is going back. So I was under quite a lot of pressure each week to make sure the work was done. And as you can imagine, that affects holidays, affects time off, spending time with family. So there was a lot going on, and it was tough. And I got to the point where I thought, okay, this can't go on. I can't continue like this. I am going to make myself seriously ill. I need to solve this problem. I didn't really know what the solution was at this point. But what I did, I gained acceptance on the fact that this wasn't right. And I stopped kidding myself that everything was going to be okay, because I think as accountants, we have this tendency to think, it's okay, I know what I'm doing, I'm an accountant, everything's all right in the background, and when it's coming in, everything can be fine. Running my business out of one account, by the way, and there was no clarity. So it was constantly a race to bring the income in to pay the bills, to bring the income in to pay the bills, and it was just a cycle that was going round and around and around. So I realized something had to change. I didn't know what. I didn't want to give up. So call it pride, call it stubbornness, call it a determination to succeed. But I was determined not to give up. And the thought of going back to being employed again, it just wasn't an option. I don't know any of you, I'm sure you all feel the same. If you've gone from employment into running your own business, I just don't think it's a step you ever want to take back again. So I was determined that wasn't going to happen. And I was actively looking for a solution to the problems. I just didn't know what the solution was. So the thoughts I had at that point was, what am I good at? What are the things that I enjoy doing? Where's my energy high? And how can I reflect that in doing something for the clients that would command higher fees? So because at this time I realized I was offering a purely reactive service to my clients. So time sort of passed by and I'm still bumbling along, but still having these thoughts in my head. I remember I used to book out Monday mornings and keep it clear so I could look at different marketing strategies, etc. Not sure that was helping with what I was trying to do, but that's where I was, my head was at. And anyway, later on, I went for a coffee with a client of mine called Nick. And he used to be in marketing, but him and his wife now ran some beauty salons. And Nick he's a great guy. And we had some really good, engaging conversations. So he was a client that had become a bit of a trusted sort of collaborator. We used to share ideas and have conversations with. And anyway, he'd been to a meeting in a mastermind group and someone had mentioned to him about Profit First and he'd never heard of it. So he'd got the book and he'd started reading it. And he said to me, Tim, he said, I've started reading this book. It's called Profit First. It's all about money. I think it would really work for you and your business. Why don't you take a read of it? So got home from the meeting, logged on to Amazon, bought the book was delivered. I'm very much a hold the book in my hand person. So I like to hold the book for it. So I started reading the book. I would say this is the first step, by the way. Reading the book of Profit First was the first step for me. So I just got a few chapters in and there's this light bulb moment or an epiphany, if you want. And I just thought, this is it. This is exactly what I've been looking for. I can do this. Why didn't I think of this? It's so bloody simple. Why didn't I think of this myself? That was the thoughts in my head. Now, bear in mind, it appears simple from the book. It's not necessarily simple in practice. So I just want to clarify that. But those were the thoughts that were going around in my head. So in the book, it gives you the website. Now, I logged on and I immediately applied to join Profit First Professionals. Now, you're supposed to have read the whole book when you apply to join Profit First Professionals. I don't know about you guys, but you run your own businesses. And I think as entrepreneurs, we don't tend to follow the rules quite in the same way as we probably should. So I was, boom, yeah, read the book. Yeah, I'm in. I want I want to apply. Truth was, I was 4 or 5 chapters in, but reading it as fast as I could, before I got on the call with Ron. So back in those days, Jason might remember this, and Stephen might have had to do this as well. You had to pay a deposit just to get on the call. And the deposit, if I remember rightly, was something like $496. And the reason it was $496 is because the monthly membership, I think, was $497. It's going back in time and numbers in my head, so I've probably got it right. I haven't checked, but let's just assume that I'm right. So on the call with Ron, he made it hard for me to join, but he decided come the end of the call that I was a good fit. Ron's great sales tactics, by the way, but even so, it worked. I couldn't wait to join. I was going to join regardless of how that call went, I think. My mind was already made up. So Ron asked me to pay the extra $1 to join. That was my first month's subscription paid up. So that was it. I was in. And I took what I called that taking a leap of faith, because I didn't do a lot of investigations into who Profit First Professionals were, but I just knew it resonated. I knew Profit First worked. I could see it. I could feel it. And I just knew it's the right step to take. As soon as I joined, I accessed the online training portal as soon as I possibly could. And then I started calls with my Profit First guide, who was Liz Spawn. Liz, I think Jason knows, I think some of you might know. Liz was brilliant, so supportive and so caring. She was a fantastic guide. And as you all know, as part of the certification program, you have to implement Profit First in your own business. And implementing Profit First in your own business is key. This is one of the major steps you have to make to be a successful Profit First professional. Because if you're not living and breathing Profit First in your own business, you really cannot understand the value that it provides to be able to share that with your clients. It's almost like one major step you have to take. So we've got reading the book, joining Profit First Professionals, and then implementing Profit First in your own business. Is 3 steps to take initially. Now, For me, I've already told you my business wasn't in the best format. There was a lot of money coming in, there was a lot of money coming out. Running the profit assessment on my own business, the reality of that cash position, it just hit me smack in the face. It was completely overwhelming. It made me realize the business wasn't in a good place. I wasn't handling the cash well at all. Absolutely awful. So I felt terrible, but on a call with Liz, she put my mind at ease. She explained to me that this is just a start. This is just the beginning of your journey with Profit First. Now you know where you're at. You've got the opportunity now to move forward and to change things, because you've got the tools at your disposal now to change what's been happening and to improve everything that you can. So I felt reassured. And when we talked through the profit assessment, I could understand what I was looking at. It's real information on the cash. And then we worked on the rollout plan, and I could see a route away from where I was. I could see a route forward. Now, I looked at it and I thought, I built the first initial profit assessment using the profit assessment tool, and it said 6 quarters. That's as far as and I'm not going to lie, I thought that was going to be tough. That was going to be tough to achieve that. But obviously talked that through with Liz, and we came through with a few other ideas, and maybe made it a little bit longer. And straight away, I started to see the benefit of being guided through my Profit First journey myself, from someone who's done it before and someone who's built up experience of working with members and businesses with Profit First. And there were a few tips and tricks that we talked about that perhaps you don't see in the book. Now, I would argue that when we take our members through now, there's even more tips and tricks that we come up with that you don't get from the book. And I can see Jason smiling because he knows most of them as well. And it's things that we've learned through our experience on what works, especially for accountants and bookkeepers, and coaches, of course, as well. But I use accountants and bookkeepers mainly because it resonates more with me and where I've come from. So then making the Profit First allocations, it gives you a quick win. You've opened the bank accounts, you've suddenly put a small amount of money into different pots, and then you feel like you've gained control. You feel like you've got clarity on your money and you've got less money to run your business. It was really important for me at this time to believe in the process, and I committed to the plan, and I did it with as much energy and focus I could throw at it. Profit First became my main focus. And I'll be honest with you, some of my clients had to wait because I decided Profit First was the route forward for me. So after implementing in my own business, we then move on to working with 3 beta clients. Now, the format for certification is still the same, by the way. So anyone who joins us, this would be the same process that I'm talking you through, with a few added bits in and a few smaller steps to take that we had to take. So we've tried to improve everything as much as we can. But working with 3 beta clients, it helps you start to talk about Profit First. Now, there's no pressure to charge for working with these 3 beta clients. And I just did it. I did it for nothing. So I reached out to people. People agreed that they were happy for me to help them with this. They understood it was a new thing I was doing. And so I started to work with them. We did the profit assessment on the beta clients, and I had a conversation with all 3 of them. And I think that's the key message here. I talked about Profit First. Now, how I talked about Profit First then and how I talk about Profit First now are worlds apart. Absolutely worlds apart. But you know what? It doesn't matter, because we all have to start somewhere. We all start our journey somewhere, and everything changes. And the more you talk about these things, there becomes a flow. A flow of conversation becomes natural. It wasn't natural for me then. Next up, I passed the certification exam, obtained the badge. What a great feeling. I've achieved something. I've got a badge. Certified Profit First Professional, amazing. Chuffed to bits. Here, showed it to everyone. Emailed it out to all my clients. Hey, look at me. I'm a Profit First Professional. Yeah. I was the kiddie. I thought I'd done the business. Of course, the downside to that is none of my clients cared. They didn't know what it meant. They couldn't care less. So 250 clients, sent it out to all of them. Probably half a dozen knew what I was talking about because I'd already spoken to them. There's a lesson in that as well. Blanket emailing your clients to tell them something like that, it doesn't necessarily work, but a phone call will. Anyway, that's what happened next. I started opening up conversations with clients, and I didn't just label it as Profit First. I just talked about how there was this new thing that I'd learned. It's going to help you be more profitable, and I can help you manage your cash differently to how you have been. And it'll give you more clarity on where you're going. I'd never offered advisory services up to this point, so I thought. But I did used to answer as many questions as I could as a matter of customer service. So I'd have someone ring me up, ask me a question. I'd spend 40 minutes on a call with them, answering the question, no charge. Just used to do it. Now, one of my clients loved me, not trying to sound like that, but they did. They loved to come in to see me. And the more I was helpful, the more they would ask me questions, and then not be concerned about the fact that they weren't being charged for it. I was great, wasn't I? Because if they went down the road to the local high street chartered accountancy practice down the road, bigger firm, bigger high street mentality, they'd have got charged 200, 250 pounds for that conversation, whereas I did it for nothing. Hence why I had a lot of clients that were quite willing not to pay me very much money. My fault. That's life. So back to Profit First. I started working with a few more clients, and I started to build my confidence, and having conversations about Profit First became more natural, and other ideas to improve their profitability became easier, because the start of the conversation started easy to start it with Profit First, and then it develops naturally into other areas. Which income streams are most profitable is one of my favorite questions I used to ask people. You won't get that by reading the Profit First book, by the way. That's just my take on let's make people more profitable. Obvious, increase sales, reduce costs. We all know that. It's that simple, isn't it? Increasing profits. But there's a way of having a conversation. There's a way of talking to your clients. So I got some success with a few clients initially. Wasn't charging them hardly any money, by the way, at this point. But what it was able to allow me to do was able to share with other clients and prospects that came into my world what I was doing with clients and how the clients were reacting. Now, it takes a while to build up long-term success with Profit First, as you know. So this doesn't happen in a number of months, but over a period of time, more and more stories I was able to share, and I started to charge a little bit of money each time. And then as I built up my confidence and success stories and a couple of case studies, I suppose you would say, I felt I could push my fees a bit more. And that's when I started to adopt the classic value pricing model. Bear in mind, this is a few years ago. I know things have moved on. I still believe in this model, if I'm honest with you. I still believe this works. My theory that I learned, again, from Ron, was to target the middle package. Now, I know a lot of people now talk about targeting the higher package, and yeah, absolutely fine, totally on board with that. If you can offer the highest level of standard, why not offer it? However, I didn't want to work with people in the highest level. I made it out of reach for people deliberately so that they would be channeled towards the middle package, which was what I deemed as a really profitable offer. And then all of my clients that I had currently, I put into the lower package. Whether they liked it or not, that's where they went. If they didn't want to stay in there, then it was time to say goodbye. So again, another leap of faith, bit of a risk, because some clients did leave. I hold my hands up. Some said, I'm not interested, I'm going to go. Fine. But I stuck to my principles by this point. And I added an element of Profit First into every package. So I know I've shared this with you, and I know Deb, it's fantastic that Deb tells how she did the same thing and how it worked for her as well. So it's great that someone else followed my steps on this to that level. So for the people in the lower package, when I did their tax return, I used to give them a profit assessment. Now, they didn't ask for it. They didn't really know what it was, but I would have a meeting with them and I would talk them through it, and I would explain, this time next year, if you follow this route, you will have the tax for your tax bill. I will be able to explain for you where the cash is for your profit. Because these questions you're asking me today, I can't help you with because I've given you a reactive service. This is a proactive service that will help you build your business, and we're looking ahead all the time. So some of them, majority of them, weren't interested. They didn't quite get it. They didn't, whether that was my messaging, whether it was the way I conveyed it, but they didn't quite understand, and they just didn't want to pay the money. They were happy with the service I was providing, and so that was that. Other people wanted to take it on board and adopt it. So some stayed in a lower package and did the DIY version, as you would call it. The people in the middle package would get monthly strategy sessions. And then the higher package was weekly strategy sessions, which, like I said, I didn't actually want to do. and I made it unachievable for most of the people that I spoke to anyway. Nobody ever took me up on that offer, and I was comfortable with that. So whilst this happened, the people in the lower package, as time evolved and we got around to their next tax return, the ones that weren't interested would say to me, okay, Tim, so what's the damage? What's my tax bill? Bearing in mind by this point, we're probably 6 months after their year, and by the time they've given me the paperwork, 3 months till their tax is due. And I would deliver them the bad news, yeah, you've made a profit, because let's be fair, to them at this stage, making a profit's bad news, isn't it? Because they know if they've made profit, they've got tax to pay. How can making a profit be bad news? But it actually, I've been there, and you're delivering this message, and you're feeling terrible because you're telling them they've got a tax bill. So you try and start off by telling them they've made a profit, but their face doesn't light up with a smile like it should do. Their face is like, right, okay, but what happens now? Because they know what's coming. The beauty of this was, with these clients, was I was able to say, you've made a profit. No, you haven't got the cash to show for it. No, you haven't got the tax saved up. This is taxable. But remember when I showed you this profit assessment last year and we talked about how we could manage your cash better? If only you'd followed that. If only you'd listened to me and followed that, you might have that money saved up now. Suddenly, it's a completely different conversation. And then they're all over it and they want some of that. They're like, oh, yeah, you did tell me this. I should have listened. So suddenly you've got something to deliver to them that's powerful and can give them support and help. And so then, of course, then they adopt the profit first principles, or they move up into the middle tier, whichever way that works. And the conversation becomes easier. I don't think I probably went through 2 of those meetings. I probably didn't get to the third one by the time I sold the business. So I'll try and remember exactly the sequence, maybe with a couple, but not very many. But that was the process that I was working through. So everybody had the opportunity to work with Profit First with me, simple as. Some embraced it, some didn't. But the clients in the middle package were starting to achieve success. And like I say, with those success stories building up in the background, I was able to share things with other people and attract better types of clients into the business. So then I started to work with people that weren't afraid of profit. They weren't afraid of VAT thresholds. They weren't afraid of tax bills. They actually wanted to embrace growing their business and being more profitable and finding ways to make that happen. Maybe they wanted to take some more staff on. Maybe they wanted to grow their team. Maybe they wanted to move to premises. So I was now working with people that were looking to grow. Still not big businesses. I'm not going to sugarcoat things. I didn't really work with massive multi-million-pound turnover businesses. But these businesses were people that ran it themselves and they wanted to grow and they wanted to build. And those are the people that I found I could really help and I had a really good affinity with, because maybe similar sized businesses, etc., looking to achieve something. So what's happened during this whole conversation, whilst I've been sharing this, is I've gone through the next step, but it's a process. And this step resulted in me now offering compliance plus advisory. And for me, this advisory is what I call the cream on top of the cake. The compliance is, if you want to say the bread and butter of your business, that's absolutely fine. Because let's be honest, when we first start with advisory, we do need to keep that money coming into the business. And by the way, going to the value pricing model meant everybody was paying me monthly. So I transitioned from the reactive billing after I'd done the job into a monthly recurring revenue. And now I'm offering compliance plus advisory. So there was a few steps involved in all of that. The compliance side was still bringing in clients, was still bringing in interest, and was still running in the background. Like I said, I had an accountant and a bookkeeper. They were doing some of the work for me. The bookkeeper left after a while, and it was me and the accountant. And then probably 6 months before I sold the business, the accountant left, and I chose not to replace her at that stage. So I was on my own come the time that I sold the business. So compliance plus advisory, that was what I was doing. And then I started to look at the clients at the bottom of my list. So we talk quite often, me and Jason in particular talk about the 20, 60, 20% of your clients. So the top 20%, bottom 20%, the ones in the middle are your middle 60%. And the bottom 20% are the ones that you think, okay, what can you do with them? Do you need them? Do you want them? Are they profitable? Are they making a loss? Can you move them up into the middle? Are they coachable, etc.? I didn't do that back then. But what I did do was I looked at who my ideal clients were and who my worst clients were. So it was a little bit more basic. And so I started to think about the worst clients. I realized that some were making a loss for me because they were very demanding of my time. They would send me messages at times in the evening when I'm sat at home. And they were the people that used to frustrate me. And they were the ones that when the phone was ringing, you saw their number, you just used to go, oh, no, not that. You know that feeling you get. So I started to release some of those. And the first person I released, I hadn't done this this was a number of years we're talking about, by the way. I hadn't done this before. It was so powerful. So all these step changes I'd done, yeah, I was still scared to release a client. Yeah, I did it. And a difficult conversation, actually. And I'm quite a softy, emotional sort of, I can easily get emotional. I found it quite hard. I was almost at the point of tears delivering the message to the client I wasn't going to work with them anymore, because I felt like I was letting them down. But actually, the reaction that I got from them, and then once they'd gone, helped me. It wasn't a very good reaction, by the way. In fact, it was quite rude. But never mind. This is life. People don't like being told they're not wanted, I guess, and maybe it's how you deliver the message. But the power I felt after releasing that client was amazing. And it was another step into me gaining control and understanding that I choose what I do. I choose who I serve. I choose what I provide. And I think that was one of those enlightening moments again for me, and powerful for me to be able to really push on again with my business. Because we go up, then we plateau, then we go up, then we plateau, don't we, with business? And I think this is one of those moments where things were I was comfortable, things were plateauing again. And I think this lifted me again. So whilst I had the compliance plus advisory, things were going fine, starting to remove clients, I started building a program, which I called the Profit Program. And it was taking people through Profit First implementation and beyond. Now, I started to work with 4 beta clients. Now, there's another lesson in this. I didn't sit for months building a program. I kind of did a few videos and started building an online program that I was going to deliver in conjunction with weekly one-to-one sessions. This was how I had it envisaged at the beginning. So I put some stuff in Thinkific, funnily enough, there, what I'm using right now as well. Put some videos in, put some lessons in, and started to build up, how people could implement Profit First via an online course. But I was also going to do it in conjunction with one-to-one sessions. So I wasn't spending too much time on this. I started working with a couple of people, and then I used the questions that they asked me to build the rest of the sessions up. So I was very clear in, right, we're going to implement Profit First. Now, I implemented Profit First following the process. Okay, worked through that. But as we were doing it, they were asking questions. The more questions they were asking, the more I was noting things down and thinking, right, I need to work on that. We can make that a session. We can do this. We can do that. So I started to build the program out that way. Sounds a little bit reactive, but if you don't listen to your clients and don't listen to the questions they're asking, how can you serve them properly? So that was my thought process. So whilst I'm going through that process, I was approached by a broker on behalf of a local accountancy firm, and they were interested in potentially buying the accountancy business. And I was interested, once I'd had that conversation, in having that conversation with them. So that was going on in the background. And over a period of 4 or 5 months after they did their due diligence, I had to, send off lots of stuff, complete lots of information for them. The sale went through. But what I did, I sold the compliance side off. And at this point, I'm like, right, another leap of faith. I'm going to be a coach. This is me now. I'm not doing accounts anymore. I'm a coach. So great news. No more January tax return deadlines. I think it's four Januaries I've gone through now without having to do a tax return. Absolutely love it. Not going to lie, wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy the compliance side. It just wasn't giving me the energy that I'd had at the beginning anymore. But the coaching side, the guidance side, of talking about Profit First, energy levels through the roof. Absolutely loved it. So I sold that side. I was still working with the 4 beta clients because it was on an ongoing process, and I had other clients in the background interested in the profit program. So that was kind of where I was at that point. And I just want to highlight that on the profit program that I did, the first 4 clients, they were beta clients. 2 clients were free of charge because they were accountancy clients as well. 1 client I knew through someone else, I did it half price for him. And the 4th client paid full price. Who was the one who took the most action and was the most successful? The one that paid full price. So another lesson in there, isn't there? We try and do things with people for free, but it's not painful for them, so they don't take action. And actually, that particular business invited me to become their CFO. And I did it for a few months whilst building up the other business, but I realized that it wasn't really what I wanted to do. So I did it for a few months. Then I decided, actually, this isn't what I want. I really want to work properly, you know, in what I'm doing and start to help other people. So that was that. I fully transitioned. So I went from burnt out compliance accountant to compliance plus advisory. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing, to advisory only. During this time, I was having meetings with Duncan Lloyd, who's another Profit First professional. He's certified, the same as me. A guy called Jean-Paul Pangalas and a guy called JJ, who was from Uganda. We were in an accountability group that Profit First professionals had put us in. And we were meeting up once a month, holding each other accountable. For various reasons, John Paul and JJ decided to drop out of the group, and me and Duncan continued. And we just helped each other. You know, what are you doing on your business? What are you doing on yours? You know, hold each other accountable. So Duncan would say, well, I'm going to get this, this, and this done by next month. And I'd say, I'm going to get this done. And then next month we would report back and we would say what we'd done, how we'd done it, and what happened. Or if we hadn't done it, why hadn't we? And we had to get it done straight away, kind of thing. So we were like that with each other. And we had one of these calls after one of our UK member meetings. So Stephen and Jason would, and Dan might have been in these, where the days when Ron used to hold the calls. And myself and Duncan just had a chat after, and we didn't really talk about our own businesses. We just kind of talked about Profit First professionals in the UK. And we sort of said, you know, do you think actually having someone in the UK running it would serve our members better? Obvious answer is yes. You know, we knew that straight away. And it was kind of it was such a brief conversation, but it was like Duncan sort of said, if we approach Mike and Ron, should we do it together? And that was it. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So we reached out by email. We got on a Zoom call with Mike and Ron, and we were amazed to find how open they were to it and how keen they were actually for it, because we just didn't know it was a thing. Duncan went to ProfitCon in September, October, so he was able to have a chat with them face to face as well. And then, you know, we came to an agreement over the next month or so. And then on the 1st of March 2022, myself and Duncan became the first ever license holders for Profit First professionals in the UK and Ireland. So I've gone from burnt out compliance accountant, offering compliance and advisory only, to master license holder of Profit First professionals in the UK. So it feels like a massive, massive change, and it is, but it happened over a period of time by taking small steps. And I think that's the important thing to remember. You can't just change from one to the other at the click of the fingers. And if you do, you're very, very lucky, and it's probably very unusual. But to be able to take small steps and follow a process, to engage in it, to take action on all the things you've learned and try. I think trying is one of the key things as well, because I had conversations going back when I first tried Profit First that people almost smacked me in the face with the no, not interested in that, that's American, go away. And I don't, you know, some clients I really thought would be engaged in it did not want to know at all. And then other people who I wasn't too sure about were all over it. They thought, fantastic, yeah, I want some of this. So trying and engaging in the process, I think, is the key parts for me. And the next stage, of course, to becoming a license holder, you know, my coaching business dipped because of that, because my focus went on to Profit First professionals being the license holder. And that was my focus. So I didn't really pursue my business in the end. And where I get my energy from, I absolutely love guiding the accountants, bookkeepers and coaches we've got in our membership. I absolutely love having sessions with them. I love taking them through certification. I love taking them through the next stages, because once you're certified, it's that next stage that's so key. And those are the steps that we're now going to start sharing in a much better way to better help people really make this work. And also the final part probably is, it cemented a niche for me. And a niche is a key part of being successful with your marketing. So my niche is accountants and bookkeepers, hence why you're all on this call. Croissants and Coffee is a group set up outside of Profit First Professionals for people interested in Profit First, for accountants and bookkeepers that want to learn. And there's 160, 175 people within that group. So we've built that up to try and help people in the community. There's not many people on the call today, but it's the Easter holidays. I wasn't expecting a big turnout today, but I just wanted to share that. And so committing to my niche, you find me on LinkedIn, everything's about Profit First, everything's about accountants and bookkeepers. You know, that's what I do. Instagram, I'm building up. Facebook, I should be getting back today, hopefully, fingers crossed. And YouTube, you know, our channel needs a bit of work. But niching, focusing on who your target market is really important as well. So now, yeah, my focus is twofold: member retention and bringing new members into our community. I absolutely love what I do. It's the best role. If you could invent a role where you earn money and you can exchange working and you've got time as well to spend outside of work, this is the role. It's like the dream role that I could have created for myself. My energy is high in everything I do, and you know, I've still got goals to achieve financially. You know, I'm enjoying the financial rewards that I get from what I do, but there's still somewhere to go. You know, I'm also not trying to, I don't want people to think I'm something I'm not. I'm still working on earning more money. I'm still working on increasing my profit rewards each quarter. I'm still on the journey. Okay. But what I have achieved is, like I say, the dream job, the dream role, the best role I could ever ask for. So yeah, so first steps for any of you that haven't joined Profit First Professionals, read Profit First. Second step, join Profit First Professionals, where you then implement Profit First in your own business. And that's where your journey really begins. So thank you for listening. Was a bit of a long version, so apologies about that. But you know what, I just wanted to share everything that I could and the steps I made. I'm sure I've missed 2 or 3 things out. It's not easy to remember everything, of course, but I appreciate your patience. And I know there's been some comments in the chat. Is there anything in the chat that anyone wants to speak about? And is there any comments that anyone's got, you know, on what they've heard? You know, any of our members, does that resonate with you, with your story? Do you feel like you followed a similar path? Take yourselves off mic and speak up, please. It'd be great to hear from you.
Yes, definitely. It's like echoing my story, Tim, to be honest. Yeah, and I'm so thankful that I had you to kind of show me the path, really, because that's what I felt like I've done. You've used my mentor for the last 3 years now. So yeah, it took me from being a solo bookkeeper all the way through to now no longer having a bookkeeping practice, and just, which for those that don't know, I no longer have bookkeeping or accountancy. We're concentrating on online programs to follow, and advisory. That's what we're concentrating on. Then that happened on the 1st of April. So yeah, near 3 years to the day of being a PFP.
And it's a great story, because Deb was the very first member we took on once we became the license holders. So yeah, Dan, Steve, Jason were already members, like me and Duncan were, but Deb was our first member. So she was the first person I guided. And I'm sure, I'm glad it's worked out, because I'm sure at the beginning, my guidance was probably not as polished as what it might be now. but we have to learn somewhere, don't we? So three years
I wouldn't have noticed, Tim, because it was 3 years ago and I was at the beginning of my journey, even though I've been a bookkeeper since 2008. So but yeah, no, great story, Tim. Really, I haven't heard the full version in its from start to finish. It was really good. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Steve, how do how does your story kind of compare? You know, what would you say? Because everyone's different. Everyone's got a different way of doing things and different thoughts and stuff.
Yeah, so the one thing I would first like to say that really I think for anyone in the early stages of this is how I'd summarize it is what I call identity expansion. So, Deb's hit on it as well. And, Jason's already more of a kind of coach, he's not an accountant. So as accountants, a lot of us kind of want to be more than accountants, but we don't know what that means. We don't know what that looks like. We haven't got a framework because we're trained as accountants. So what Profit First did for me first personally was enabled me to take off the reins and to kind of give me permission to say I'm a coach as well as an accountant, really. And now I actually get offended if someone calls me an accountant. I almost don't like being called an accountant. And from the business perspective, yeah, we all want to do more than the basics, but what does that mean? What does it look like? And what I like about Profit First is the simplicity of the next step, the next step. And it's all so natural. It's not complex software doing all these fancy things. And, it's just keeping it simple. And that really resonates with our clients.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Stephen. Jason, I was going to come to you anyway. You're on mute.
Of course, inevitably. I was just going to piggyback on the back of what Stephen was saying there about it gives you the next step, and the next step is a simple step to take, and it doesn't have to be a big step. So no accounting or bookkeeping practice in the background for me. And yes, generally coaching, general business coaching, but sort of portfolio, external CFO was my kind of world. The one thing that Profit First did for me was it gave me two things: boundaries and objectives. All of a sudden, I'd gone from my own version of not really knowing what was coming over the hill from one week to the next, which clients would line up, which ones would have the work to do in the following month, where the billable hours were going to come from necessarily. Sometimes it was a bit more intense on some very project related things. Sometimes it was a bit more kind of just keeping in step with, monthly requirements, as it were. But Profit First gave me boundaries. It made the conversation very succinct. It made it highly, highly objective. And that secondary piece about actually having some specific objectives to move towards those target levels as we think about them suddenly gave everything far more purpose. It was no longer a let's just try and make more money and here are ways to make more money. It was a let's try and do it in a way that actually serves you as the business owner as well. So I think that they're two things. So despite the fact I didn't have that compliance piece and have never had that compliance piece in my background, I had my own version of kind of not mess, but degrees of burnout and the worry about where was the money coming from 1 month to the next and so on. And I very much set my stall out to make Profit First a recurring revenue stream for me. That was how I set up. It's how I ran things with clients. That was the expectation to really change that. So yeah, boundaries and objectives, two things it definitely gave me as a process, even though I was in the space of coaching, consultancy, those kind of things already.
Thanks, Jason. And talking to Jason, it reminds me that when we go through the process with our members after certification, we get to a stage where we say to them about, well, Jason calls it the anti-practice plan. And I think because Jason's built his business up through Profit First without the compliance side, at all. So he's had to do this without anything to rely on in the background, arguably. Had his clients before, obviously, but you know what I'm saying. So we kind of challenge our members at some point to say, okay, imagine you've sold all of your compliance clients off on Friday. It's Monday morning. You've got a blank piece of paper. You've got Profit First. What are you going to do? And it's such a powerful question. And I think it really makes people start to think outside the box of what it is they want to achieve. That doesn't mean we're expecting you to sell your compliance clients off, by the way, because this is choice. It's your business, your choice. So when people join us, they have routes they can take. and the route they take will be the one that serves them the most, and we will guide them to achieve that. For many people, so Stephen, for instance, has got a large accountancy firm in Cheltenham. He's still got his compliance clients, but he's got lots of advisory on top of it as well. So and it's successful. It really works. Had someone not knocked on my door asking to buy the compliance side of my business, would I have sold it or not? I don't know. I can't answer that. But when you get an opportunity, it's whether you grasp it or not, and what sits with you. You know, I could have had the option to gone back to employing. Funnily enough, the accountant who left me wanted to come back at that time, so I could have got her back and put her and promoted her and put her in charge of everything to do with the compliance side of the business, and me focus on advisory. Something held me back from that, and I chose the option to sell it because I just didn't want the compliance side of my life anymore. That just because that was right for me doesn't mean it's right for others. And I think telling your story and telling your journey, the point of that is to help people see that there's a route that you can take. I'll go to Jason, and I was just going to go around the room and just ask everyone for any comments if they've got any, and then we can go towards the end. Jason.
Sorry, I for the second time this morning, in short order now, I'm going to piggyback on the back of Stephen's comment as well. Very important point with changing lives for people. I think it's another distinction I would make. I now look back on it thinking I was just doing the do. It was like my version of compliance for what it was worth. And yet Profit First has this thing about giving it objectives to hit for people, and actually seeing people wipe out debt, pay off mortgages, hire people, you know, all of these things in a much more structured way, absolutely changing lives for people. Absolutely no doubt about it. So I just wanted to echo that point.
I think it's an amazing point. And the one thing that I hear from our members every time, there's one word that comes out every time. Everybody says joining Profit First Professionals is a game changer. They say the word game changer every time. I don't know whether it's a buzzword or whether it's a common word at the moment, but that's the word people use. And then some people, including myself, John Norton said this as well, life-changing. You know, absolutely life-changing. And if you think about me sitting there burnt out in my office on my own, burnt out Sunday afternoon, when I probably would have rather been watching the football, doing someone's tax return, scratching my head, to this, what I'm doing now, it's a massive change. And if I can do it, it is achievable for anyone, believe me. Elisabetta, what are your, have you got any thoughts or anything you want to add? You're early in your Profit First Professionals journey, certified, starting to feel your way into what happens next. So just any thoughts on this?
I think it's as everyone says, it is a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. For me, it's at the moment, I guess, for me, it's to not, I don't want to say run too fast, but like it is a change. It's a change in me. It's a change in the client. So like taking it slowly, I think, and just like almost letting the things unfold in front of me, and spending more time reflecting on what's happening around rather than rushing into things. Yeah. That's where I am at the moment, and I loved hearing your story, even though I had heard bits of it before, but it's nice to get it all in one go. So yeah,
thanks, Elizabeth.
That's where I am. That's what, you know, I am very early in my journey, so it's yeah, but I love the road so far.
Brilliant. And there's a massive passion that comes from me to helping members go through this as well. So it's enjoyable working with you all as well. Thanks, Elizabeth. Steph, I know we're catching up at 10:15 anyway. But yeah, what's your thoughts on this at the moment?
Yeah, it's where I'm wanting to. I want to say I fully take my business, because I actually love doing bookkeeping when it works well. So when you've got the good clients that just send you everything that you need, and you can just, you know, you've got the automation, and it's purely, at the end of the day, it's just clicking buttons. That's the part I really love. And I want to incorporate and have that time to be able to do these more value-packed things, because I don't think it's a buzzword. There's no other way to describe it. It is literally life-changing. And it finally feels like people can put a purpose and a strategy to finance like they do with everything else in their business. I mean, they have strategies for sales, they have strategies for growth, they have purpose for their business. So, you know, having purpose for the finance, which is the outcome of every single thing in life, just makes such logical sense. So yeah, it's definitely something that is deep in my DNA, because honestly, I get really excited, and it really energizes me when I look at it and talk about it. I'm 4 months into my journey now, but I've had massive sidetracks along the way, or distractions, or I mean, opportunities, I suppose, you know, that are really going to expand me. So yeah, I'm just impatient. I want to do it all now, which is probably not the wisest move. But yeah, I wish I'd done this sooner, because I read the book. I listened to the audio book 4 years ago, and I briefly tried to implement it. But I think there's a massive difference between physically reading and listening. I think you miss a lot when you listen, which is the crucial things I missed, because I jumped straight into actually implementing the targets without catching the first bits. And it was only until I read the book that I was like, aha, I missed that. How did I miss that? And it, of course, naturally, it didn't work the first time round. And I gave it to my client, and he was like, yeah, this doesn't work either. And he's had that mindset since. But I think he's finally coming around, because he wants to book a session with me next month, where he wants me to train their new bookkeeper into forecasting and doing the profit first assessments. So yeah.
Excellent. Well done, Steph. And yeah, it'll happen. Keep pushing forward with us. We'll catch up with you shortly anyway. And Kim, I'm sorry I've not come to you yet. Normally we go around the room a lot earlier in the call, so this is a bit of a back to front call today. But Kim, welcome along. Very, very pleased to see you here. How do you feel after hearing all of that? What does that sound like to you?
Hiya. Yeah, we've already started to talk about how we make this move in our practice. We've already sort of identified that I have a business partner, so I'm lucky that I've got someone to bounce this around with anyway. Although I have been in practice on my own before, but it's very nice to have someone to, you know, do this with. I'm not on my own. But we've already started to talk about this. How do we do it? Because we've both been in this industry a long time, and I think we're both grown a little bit tired of the bookkeeping, the chasing the receipts, the year-end run around. We've been doing it for so long, and we're at that point where we think we've got enough knowledge to be able to step into that advisory space rather than the actual doing the doing. And yeah, I suppose it's all about work-life balance as well. We'd quite like to get down to not working the hours we're working and having a bit more freedom. So yeah, we're definitely well into trying to work out how we make the move, and the question is, do we keep the compliance but have a team that solely deals with the compliance, and it's just the two of us on the advisory side? So yeah, that's where we're at the moment.
Yeah, I understand that. And yeah, I think it's definitely a step change from compliance to advisory. And I would suggest keeping the compliance initially, adding the advisory on top. When your advisory gets to a certain level, then you might better say, do you know what, we could sell the compliance off now and we could just do advisory. But if you go from into get rid of compliance too quickly and do advisory, then sometimes the bread and butter of the business isn't there. And
Absolutely.
it becomes quite challenging. So I would definitely recommend doing it in small steps, taking your time over the compliance before removing it, and learning how advisory is and what the best strategies are to better put out to your clients and stuff. But we're here to help you with that. If you're not in our Crosses of Coffee group, then I'll give you the link to join that at some point as well. because we
thank
talk
you.
about these things. This is a thing from our community anyway, this call, and we talk about things in there all the time. And when we get on calls, then you have access to us all the time, and that's all for free. So we can sort that out.
Brilliant.
All right,
Thank
Kim.
you.
So welcome. Thanks for coming along. So thanks everyone. Appreciate your time this morning. And my coffee went cold. I only had 3 sips because I was talking so much. So never mind. That doesn't normally happen. But have a great Friday, all of you. Really pleased to see you. And yeah, have a great weekend. See you next week.
Thank you.
Great.
Cheers, guys. Thanks, Tim.